wait for the ambulance to come. I know if you a shooter by the way you're handling the gun. Gambling, you're done. Shells burn like candles in the sun. I'm not a fan of gun violence, nor having a strap, but get popped once, and I swear that you'll be scrambling for one. But our plans was to get funds and skate off the set, so I mixed the kush with the dro to make all my weight stretch. I'm from with a dudes rob and argue all day about who's the best MC, Saha Stacks and T.I. while dodging the GBI. My bad, I love GZI, but I'm still the best to ever do it, and I ain't even put a CD out. So the next time you say that I ain't got no lyricists, I just think you ain't got a taste for this exquisite shit. My verses are like Leviticus to the underprivileged. I make music for the world, you make music for a stripper bitch. Nick black leather, beret cap era, guns at your capital, take it to that measure. It's Huey, nigga. It's Huey, nigga. Never been a victim, a rebel against the system. Lames wanna diss them and women just wanna kiss them. It's Huey, nigga. It's Huey, nigga. It's that God flow, what they nailed Jesus to the cross for. And he came back 3 days after he died flow. This Pablo, talking to kids in Chicago, mob flow. This that midget New Jersey drive flow. Side note, I wrote this rap with my eyes closed, bravo. Cause it came out clean as the Moss flow, Costco. Hoes selling they twat for a car note. Benny Hunters and Roscoe, Picasso. Nas mixed with a pop flow. Rappers can't stand me. This that Grammy Nas flow. Let me stop though, cause I'm going digital with the syllables. Saha the Prince and I'm royalty like residual. These hoes for me, they supposed to be hospitable. When they in the house with a nigga that's not typical, that's not fictional. I run this bitch like elliptical. Can another rapper come out of Atlanta if he not lyrical? Nigga, black leather, beret cap era, guns at your capital, take it to that measure. It's Huey, nigga. It's Huey, nigga. Never been a victim, a rebel against the system. Lames wanna diss them and women just wanna kiss them. It's Huey, nigga. It's Huey, nigga.
This that shot right, where out of towners die at. I advise you book your flight now and fly back. Gangland, bang then, what you claim, fam? Box Chevys, foreigns, $150 flow. Young nigga got bitches at the 50 though. 50 pack done, good, drop off 50 more. My city rough, but I made it in it. Trap house look like it's what K's invented. Trust nobody, even friends, look, I hate up in it. Rhyme dirty with your bitch smoking, wait a minute. LA garage with Illinois and Decatur in it. Nigga snitching, I'm like, way to win it. Nigga looking like a state defendant. Photo look like a two-door. My two-door look like a full-door. I'm cutting up, call me Zorro. Hit him in his mask, get him a body bag. Give me a track, get him a body that.
ETM Hotel, Brittany Sean. Welcome to Peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to appreciate everybody for tapping into science, to the Kofi Pie Side TV. Please like the show, share the show, tell a friend. We're actually live. So this situation with the volleyball player rolled out a few days ago during a trip for a volleyball game to Utah. And she was said that she had a difficult time, a very, very, very difficult time. I ain't late. I just ain't said nothing. I ain't never late. I just be minding my business. You know what I'm saying? Oh, okay. But anyways, she had a difficult time at a game. Nothing was done about it, and then some ruckus was made after the game. And then next thing you know, they somehow identified who the person was who was causing the ruckus. This person's supposed to be gone. But here's the thing: let's deal with it on a different level. And I'm gonna start off by saying this. as athletes, whether you're a youth or whether you're in high school and even in colleges, no matter the sport, if you are a black person, when you go into certain environments, in certain places, in certain areas, you are subjected to uh, r- receiving some type of hatred during your time at these places. As I'm telling y'all, as athletes, this happens so much. Um, just from my own experiences, I remember going into country backwood towns like Henry County, Dixon, Tennessee. These places where they're predominantly white. Um, they're not near the city. There's not many black people present. Paris, Tennessee, which is where Henry County High School football team is known for a little clan activity. So when we would have to go and play Henry County in Paris, Tennessee, I mean, yeah, when we go into these particular places, right? Just period, you will see some things that are unconventional, or things could happen after the football game, especially if they lose, that are unconventional. The instructions from your head coaches are to stay on the bus. We all walk off the field together. We all get on the bus together. We do not straggle behind. That's the rule of thumb. That has not changed at all in this country, period. So here we have an incident where a sister comes out and she's playing a volleyball match and she has to deal with some antagonizers, right? We all antagonize during sports. That's a part of the game. We know people in the crowd to talk crazy, but lately, a lot of people in this particular era has been a little bit more froggy and disrespectful. They have they have garnered up enough strength to feel comfortable enough to yell some things out at people that has been disingenuous. If you go back and look at, um, basketball players in sports arenas, you had an antagonizer, dealing with Chris Paul during the playoffs, or during a basketball game. A young guy, a little 13-year-old kid, whatever the case may be, and he says some things, and then he mentions his Paul's wife and kids. The audacity of this 13 or 14, this teenager, I don't know how exactly old he is, but he's a teenager. The audacity of this teenager to actually antagonize Chris Paul during this game and bring his wife and kids up was very disrespectful. That's not the only incidents of that. You had other incidences where you had fanfare, especially going back to where Meta World Peace, he gets into a fist fight with someone in the crowd, right? Talking crazy, smack, yelling at them, blah, blah, blah. It is what it is with that. They come to blows. You have the whole melee. But this is an ongoing issue and situation, in what we face is a new America. In the age of social media and things of that nature, it's daunting that a lot of other evidence hasn't come out showing this antagonizer's behavior. You know why? Because BYU has been subjected to this type of scrutiny before. They've been blamed for incidences like this before, especially on the football field. So this is a huge problem. Now, of course, in the description of the video, I got all the information below, and it is what it is with that. But I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and as people come in, if they even watch at all, I'm gonna deal with what I'm gonna deal with. I don't have Twitter, but this is the sister's Twitter page, Rachel Hart. Here she go. This is the volleyball player right here. She doesn't have many following. She's not following her followers or whatever, but she's a volleyball player, and we're gonna read some of what she had to say in her messages. Oh, I could have downloaded it. Anyway, no, I couldn't. All right, so hello, my name is Rachel Richardson. I'm a sophomore at Duke University women's volleyball team. Friday night in our match against Brigham Young University, my fellow African American teammates and I were targeted and racially heckled throughout the entirety of the match. The slurs and comments grew into threats, which caused us to feel unsafe. Both the officials and BYU coaching staff were made aware of the incident during the game, but failed to take the necessary steps to stop the unacceptable behavior and create a safe environment. As a result, my teammates and I had to struggle just to get through the rest of the game instead of just being able to focus on playing so that we could compete at the highest level possible. They also failed to adequately address the situation immediately following the game when it was brought to their attention again. No athlete, regardless of their race, should ever be subjected to the hostile conditions. God has called each of us to be members of one body. While we may have our differences, they should never divide us. That said, I do not believe this in any way a reflection of the BYU athletes stand for. The girls on the team played a great game and showed nothing but respect and good sportsmanship on and off the court. Once notified, the BYU athletic director, Tom Holme, was quick to act in a very respectable and genuine manner. He is at the forefront of the ensuing that the BYU athletic staff and players undergo education and training to better handle prevent the racist, ignorant, and asinine behaviors that were exhibited by their fans during the match. Fans, pluralized. It is neither my nor Duke volleyball's goal to call BYU athletics out, but rather to call them up. This is not the first time this has happened in college athletics, and sadly, it likely will not be the last. However, each time it has happened, we as student athletes, coaches, fans, and administrators have a chance to educate those who act in a hateful way. This is an opportunity to dig deep into closed cultures which tolerate immoral racist acts such as those exhibited Friday night and change them for the better. It is not enough to indicate that you are not racist, and instead you must demonstrate that you are anti-racist. My team and I were fortunate enough to go through a long talk, which is an educational series on the roots of racism and how to be an activist and dealing with racism. This is sad. A 19-year-old is having to have a long talk with her teammates, as they call it, an educational series. It's 2022. How much education do y'all need on racism? This helped equip us to deal with the situation in a mature manner rather than a retaliatory manner. I want to express my gratitude to Duke Athletics Administration for being quick to act on on my team's behalf. Additionally, I'd like to thank my coaching staff and teammates for immediately dealing with the situation. To the best of their ability, the minute that they were made aware of it further, I would like to thank anyone who has reached out to make me aware that you stand with us. Finally, I understand some people would have liked more to happen in the moment, such as an immediate protest and refusal to play on. Although the heckling eventually took a mental toll on me, I refused to allow it to stop me from doing what I love to do and what I came to BYU to do, which was to play volleyball. I refused to allow those racist bigots to feel any degree of satisfaction from thinking that their comments had gotten to me. So I pushed through and finished the game. Therefore, on behalf of my African American teammates and I, we do not want to receive pity or to be looked at as helpless. We do not feel as though we are victims of some tragic, unavoidable event. We are proud to be young African American women. We are proud to be Duke student athletes, and we are proud to stand up against racism. Rachel Richarson. She dropped that on everybody on August 28, 2022, literally a few days ago. That's what she laid out. You know, it was made aware pretty much 2 days ago after she dropped this people began to start talking a little bit more. But I know y'all looking at the title of this and you're like, a Negro hoax? Duke player faces racial slurs during the game. And some of y'all, scripture riptures, psychological shackle breakers, as he changed his name. Um, he says, so now it's a hoax. Well, many people tend to provide this as a source when arguing against vaccines and other information. It's called the Washington Examiner. On Thursday, September 1st, 2022, they published this. Media go all in on apparent volleyball racism hoax at BYU. I'm going to say it again. Media go all in on apparent volleyball racism hoax at BYU. Written by or commentary writer Zachary Ferrier. August 31st, 2022. So let's move forward. Here we go. Zach writes, we were past due for another racial hoax. I'm going to say it again. Zachary writes, I got to say his name when I say this. Zachary writes, we were past due for another racial hoax. Sports media and Brigham Young University have apparently just helped Duke volleyball provide us with one. This is his opening statement, ladies and gentlemen, in his article. I cannot make this up, nor will I sit here and act like I don't have the information. He continues, he being Zachary. Let me say that again. I don't think that's registering with y'all what he is saying. We were past due for another racial hoax. Sports media and Brigham Young University have apparently just helped Duke volleyball provide us with one. The controversy started when the godmother of Duke's only black starter, Rachel Richarson, claimed that the BYU fan called her the N-word every time she served. This controversy predictably blew up, and one fan was banned indefinitely from BYU. Now, I'm going to go back to Rachel's tweet because I need to make this clear. She said what she posted here was pluralized. It is neither my nor Duke volleyball's goal to call BYU athletics out, but rather to call them up. This is not the first time this happened in athletics, and sadly, it will likely not be the last time. Right? But I know y'all heard me when she said fans. She said fans, not a fan. It was pluralized. So I'm bringing this back up because you just heard what I said in the article, and they said one person was removed. I'm showing y'all this again very slowly for those of you who might be listening, who might be watching, and need to see it for yourselves. She's fans. She didn't say a fan. Look at the top of the screen. I'm highlighting it right here with my big arrow if it shows up. I'll read it to you again. Start. Once notified The BYU athletic director, Tom Holme, was quick to act in a very respectable and genuine manner. He is at the forefront of ensuring that the BYU athletic staff and players undergo education and training to better handle and prevent the racist, ignorant, and asinine behaviors that were exhibited by their fans during the match. Our good old buddy Zach, he says the controversy started when the godmother of Duke's only black starter, not the black players that's on the bench, but Duke's only black starter. He was specific, the only black starter, claimed that a BYU fan called her the N-word. She said racial slurs were being thrown at them by fans, not a fan. Fans. Yeah. Let me continue. Now, this story was picked up by the professional race baiter Jamil Hill, The Atlantic, and Mike Freeman, USA Today. Notice specifically that he calls out Jamil Hill, the sister who left ESPN because of some issues she had with ESPN. Then says ESPN bid on it, giving an interview to Richardson while ESPN personalities condemned the incident. It even bled into establishment media. CNN's Brianna Keeler gave a segment on Richardson's father, who smeared the entire BYU crowd as racist due to the atmosphere in the arena. It was picked up uncritically by NPR, ABC, NBC, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. The author of this article is Zachary Ferrier. He is a writer for Washington Examiner. Same people y'all use for vaccine information. Let me continue. So here is the tweet or the clip from Brianna Keeler. And the pops, saying what they say. So I'm not going to elaborate and play all of that. You can check that thing out. But let's check Zach out. Here's what Zach says. The problem with this, none of it appears to be true. He said all of this mess does not even appear to be true. What up, Judy? He said the BYU police reviewed footage of the fan who was, where's that footage? He says they reviewed footage of the fan who was banned and determined that he did not yell any slurs when Richardson was serving. The fan wasn't even present when Richardson was serving the first time, and he was on the phone during Richardson's second serve. Those were the only 2 times she served in front of the BYU student section. A BYU student newspaper reached out to several people in the student section, none of whom had heard any slurs. Not a single person has since come forward to report to BYU police that they heard the alleged slur. Black members of BYU basketball team were also in the student section, yet they did not react and have not come forward to say they heard anything. So here's a tweet on August 29th by Aiden Keener TB, whoever this guy is. He says, I watched the entire 2-hour video of the game. Rachel said she was called the N-word the entire game. Godmother says it happened when she served. BYU said the heckler was in the student section. She served only 2 times in front of the student section. No one reacted. Black BYU basketball players were sitting next to the student section the entire game. Not one of them reacted, heard, or seen upset at the heckler who allegedly was yelling racial slurs the entire game, according to Lisa Pamplin and Rachel Richardson. And Richardson's godmother, who started the whole controversy, she locked her Twitter account after people discovered her history of racist tweets directed at white people. She also happens to be running for office in Texas. Lisa Paplin initially, this is the same guy. Lisa Pampling initially made the allegations that her goddaughter, Rachel Richardson, was called the N-word despite not being at the game. She is running for office in Fort Worth and has a history of racist tweets. Her account is now private, so they share her tweets. There's Pampling. She's running for judge. They called this racist. I knew she was married to a white boy just reading the tweet. Being married to a white woman, he thinks he can talk this stupid ass nonsense. She talking about Clarence 2.0. All right, going on. They end the story like this. The story never made sense on its face, but the media did not care. A black player claims to hear a slur, so the media assumes there was one. The media pressure scared the cowards at BYU and abandoned one indefinite without evidence, just as it scared the Colorado Rockies into threatening to ban one of the fans who made the media claim was yelling the N-word at a game. Even though no one in the crowd even reacted to it, the fan was actually yelling the name of the mascot. But establishment media didn't care to find that out before reporting on it. Even the scenario that some of the other fans was yelling the slur seems unlikely, given everything we know now. We know, thanks to the BYU police, that the fan who was banned certainly didn't say it. But there will be no reckoning or accountability for our media because raising a alarm fire over a reported incident of racism, no matter how unlikely or proven, is establishment media do best. I'm assuming this is the guy who was probably thrown out of the game. But this article was published today by the Washington Examiner. So, did the BYU police uncover that this guy didn't say anything? Fox 13, no evidence found of banned BYU player yelling racial slurs. Police, Utah, find no evidence. BYU police don't find evidence of racial slur directed at Duke. Provo, where it happened. BYU Police Sergeant Richard Lawson, who was responding officer to the incident, said he did not believe the fan who was banned by BYU for allegedly using the slur committed the action. This was the police officer when he arrived on the scene's statement. After reviewing video surveillance of the BYU game film with the coach after the match, the officer, who also spent time in the BYU student section during the fourth set, said the banned spectator showed nothing seen on the game film that led me to believe he was the person who was making comments to the player. During the second set, when the comment was reported to have been made, he was not present when the player was serving. Y'all need to know that. He was only there when he was only there during the fourth set. He was not there during the first, second, or third set. He was there during the fourth set. On her second time serving during the set, he was on his phone and didn't appear to be paying attention to the game. BYU banned the fan from on-campus athletic events, but did not indicate how long the ban would last. The ban was indefinite, the report said, until further investigation could be done. The fan, whose name was redacted from the report, has not been identified publicly. Larson added that he did not observe or hear any inappropriate comments or language from the student section during the match, including while he stood with the spectators during the fourth set. Let's watch this.
I believe that meeting anger with anger, it just starts a cycle. Anger. As a young Black woman in America, I know I don't have the privilege of reacting all the time, or else it paints that face of, oh, you're just another angry Black woman. I felt as though responding to it in the way that I did would help the greater purpose. And that's creating awareness. And that's allowing everyone from both sides to better see the fact that we should all be working towards a common goal. We shouldn't be trying to create two sides. What I want the most out of this, one, is to raise awareness, and two, to hopefully encourage institutions such as BYU and others to start really putting in those efforts and the funds to educate the general student body. I don't want to group BYU altogether in a negative light. So I've just seen it as an opportunity to raise awareness for the fact that racist incidents such as these, they still are happening. It is 2022 and it should be unacceptable, but it still happens. And that is due to a lack of education on situations such as these, a lack of education on how to deal with people who might still be ignorant, who might be racist. You know, you have to learn how to look at someone as a person, and only that, because that's what helps you meet someone with compassion.
So that was a little, response thing that she actually did. I'm not going to go any further into this particular article, but this is the position that the Provo police officer really has took his position on, or the BYU police sergeant, Richard Larson. That's his position. He was not there earlier on when he was actually called to come in. It was the fourth set. He said he reviewed the videotape of where the student section was, and he said that one of the the person that they banned looked like he was on the phone. So now it's become a matter of he say, she say, and something to quiet the storm, which leads to someone like this writing the article that they wrote and digging in on the other people's business. When I say other people's business, I'm talking about who he blamed is the cause for the events, never minding Rachel or the other Duke athletes for their position. Duke has also Duke University has also posted a stance regarding this, as they are in support of their student athletes. This is from the Times. This is basically everything that we've already talked about in these articles. But I use them. I have them here as support to actually deal with the matter at hand, just to let you know how the media was writing things and to go from there. But I want to take you to First Take. Right? There's something said in here in First Take that first, before I play this. What up, Rondé? A little late to the party. But before I play this, I want to say this. We all know that these people be actually saying this stuff to us during these games. To sit here and to act like this ain't being said by these people to distract us and get us off our game, to give their teams an edge per se, is ridiculous. I mean, these people are literally acting like this did not transpire at all. But anyway, let's deal with the First Take, man.
However, each time it happens, we as student athletes, coaches, fans, and administrators have a chance to educate those who act in hateful ways. Although the heckling eventually took a mental toll on me, I refuse to allow it to stop me from doing what I love to do and what I came to BYU to do, which was to play volleyball. I refuse to allow those racist bigots to feel any degree of satisfaction from thinking that their comments had gotten to me. So I pushed through and I finished the game. On Saturday, the day after the incident, BYU announced it banned a fan who yelled racial slurs at Richardson. The fan was sitting in the BYU student section but was not a student and has been banned from all athletic venues on campus. The school statement said, "We will not tolerate behavior of this kind, specifically the use of a racial slur at any of our athletic events. It's absolutely unacceptable, and BYU Athletics holds a zero tolerance approach to this behavior. We wholeheartedly apologize to Duke University and especially its student athlete competing last night for what they experienced."
All right, here we go.
Okay, we'll bring in Marcus Spears. By the way, can I just say one thing really quickly?
Please.
This statement is incredible, and as you know, an adult, you can learn a lot from this statement from a 19-year-old. It's so well written.
Yeah.
But now let's get to the heart of the matter. I just had to mention that as I was going through it. Marcus, your reaction to what this college student experienced at BYU this past weekend?
Yeah, Molly, yesterday I was texting Stephen A. and I told him, I said, man, I need to come on and talk about this because I'm very close to it. And you all know why. I'm a volleyball dad. My daughter plays volleyball at a very high level. We've experienced so many great things with her playing. And for Rachel Richarson, the player at Duke University, to be subjected to this, immediately in my mind was, what would my reaction as a father be if this was my daughter who had went through this incident? And not only that, the reaction time is what I have an issue with. Why don't we fix these things and rectify them in real time? Why do we have to come out and make statements afterwards? It was BYU's responsibility, and I also feel like it was Duke's responsibility to take a stand in that moment. That is where I have my biggest issue at. We're talking about a 19-year-old young woman being subjected to being called racial slurs, to feeling uncomfortable. This young lady said, I actually felt unsafe. And we didn't do anything in real time to stop a volleyball game to rectify that situation. The second thing is, you know what I get tired of every time we talk about this racial thing is the education piece. Whoever that man was, he knew damn well what he was doing was wrong. And hopefully, sitting in the student section, the students around him knew what he was doing was wrong and shouldn't have been making statements like that. And I will have respect for BYU athletic director John Homo coming out and making his statements, but I needed him to call what it was. I didn't need him to call it slurs. I needed him to call it racism, because that is the overall arching conversation. Every time we have one of these situations or incidents pop up, we want to couch it in education. First of all, there should be enough education in the year 2022 to know that this egregious situation shouldn't have taken place, but also while it was taking place was the right time for you to take action. So me being close to this, like I told Stephen A. yesterday, and me thinking about what that young woman was subjected to, the anger that you heard in her godmother's voice, and also her mom made a Facebook post as well. I go across gyms all across this country at volleyball tournaments. I'm around great people, black, white, all different types of nationalities. We meet at these convention centers. We have a great time. We sit in hotel lobbies together. We talk about our daughters. We talk about our background. My daughter is fortunate enough to be one of the top volleyball players in the country, being recruited to all of these places. And I'm going to end it, and I'm going to pass Stephen A. to Mike and hear what Mike has to say. To every single university, when you have a situation like this, parents are watching. We're watching how you respond, not only afterwards, we're watching how you respond in real time. And therein lies my issue with not only BYU and their staff and what they decided to do during the game, but also Duke. It should have been handled differently while that was transpiring. Because if an athlete tells you, I feel unsafe, and let me visualize volleyball. When you're going back to serve, you're alone on the service line. That's where you are. You're the only one back there. Your teammates are in front of you. So whatever heckling you get, whatever somebody is saying, that they're sitting right behind you and you feel unsafe, they're close to you. And I've watched Stephen A. talk about this with the NBA and how they handle those situations in that moment. And for me as a father to a volleyball player that will someday play collegiately, God willing, and may be subjected to something that's uncomfortable or against what we teach her and unnormal, I would hope that one of the adults there, because me and her mother won't be able to go to every single college game she plays, as I plan to be still on TV, I would hope somebody in real time would have her back and get that situation rectified right then.
And this is why BYU, it cannot be let off the hook. Say, well, Will, this is a gym. You mentioned it. So I go, this is a gym. It's not a football field. A football field, somebody can be saying something over here. You may not hear it over there. In a gym, everybody hears what is being said. If you're back there serving and they're yelling racial slurs, everybody in that gym should have heard something, and they should have stopped the game and did something immediately. We come out with all of these things that we say afterwards, but we let that transpire. When you read, they say, every time she served, after the first time she served, that should have been stopped right there. They should have gotten that guy out and got him out of there. Don't come back later and say, oh, no, he wasn't a student. We don't have anything to do with that. You left him there. Yes, you do. She didn't just serve one time. She said every time she served. And nobody, you mentioned it, not even a student, not one student is going to say, hey, man, that's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. You should go. You got to go. Or get somebody over here and say, hey, he has to go. He shouldn't be doing this because it's going to represent all of you. If you let that go on, it's going to represent all of you. So get up and go get somebody. Schultz.
Yep.
And they have an outstanding.
All right. This video ain't all about the whole thing, but that's what I wanted to get out was those 2 points. Now, I want to talk about what was just said in the video. Michael Irvin had some good points, and it's up to the people around the incident to help direct the situation. I mean, to help, not direct, but directly handle the situation immediately. Like, sometimes they're okay with it. Now I'm gonna tell y'all why they okay with it. How many people seen Roddy White's video when he was in the UK and he was singing his song, and you know what I'm saying, the crowd saying word for word with him, and then when it come up to the part where they say the N-word, they so freely bouncing up and down, and in that moment they just saying the N-word, right? It's at a concert, right? So that's acceptable, huh? But at these events, these people think the behaviors are acceptable, just like their concert. They think that it's acceptable when it ain't. When it ain't. Like, she's playing a game. Her players are on the bench. You're yelling these things at her as a distraction. Buddy, I'm sure you could come up with some other way to antagonize her and to distract her while she's serving. Because when you go to Duke University, that's what the Dukies do. They yell all kind of things at you to distract you. They got all kind of sayings, claps, sways of their hands. They point their little fingers out, fan them. They do all kind of stuff at you. But if they are yelling racial slurs at you, bro, you get the people around got to fix that. You gotta police yourselves in the incidents, because everything else is still on the table. It's fanfare, but it's disrespectful as hell when we've been put in these situations and environments before. When we've gone into hostile situations to play sports, but then it becomes a racial thing is the only tactic that you actually bum motherfuckers have to target us. Talk about my limp, my forehead, you know what I'm saying? Joke about my teammates, our uniforms, our mascot, talk about our coach, our coaching staff, talk about how we choked in the past. Do all of that in the lines of fanfare. But to constantly keep trying to use the color of my skin and as a way to deter me from focusing on my objective, you lowering your standards. Right. They do usually use code words. And I agree with you 1000%. They are guilty until proven innocent, just like we guilty to proven innocent in any other situation. They are guilty to proven innocent. And yes, they do. They code. Listen, bro. You and I both know when we go to these events and we go to these gyms and stuff like that, Benita, you should know rightfully so, especially when your kid on basketball circuits. When your kid on these basketball circuits, especially when they in Chattanooga hooping or Knoxville hooping and stuff like that, they're subjected to some type of racism in those gyms. We talking East Tennessee backwood. And yeah, they got a code word. They might take the N out. They might say slicker. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. They might come up with all kinds of code words that would defy it, but because we know that they got these code words, because we didn't heard it in the kids didn't heard these things in the schools, right? They know what they're trying to do. Benita says, if that was a black man yelling racial slurs to a white girl, they probably would have taken out of there and arrested for disorderly conduct. That is absolutely correct. If it was a black man yelling, calling a cracker or all kind of things like that, yeah, he would have been arrested for that, and it would have been acknowledged and it would have been applauded immediately. You know what I'm saying? Because that type of antagonism can't survive that situation, because, like, again, it goes back to the color of the skin. But Brigham Young has had situations and issues like this in the past. We expect racial slurs. Just because we expect racial slurs doesn't mean that it is acceptable. If we expect it, then we're accepted of it, and we shouldn't be complaining about it at all. If we're expecting them to be racist toward us, then we should, you know what I'm saying, you're going to deal with that. So I want to bring up something that I didn't put in the thing, but first let me take this off. Let me share my screen. I wanted to bring this up. I don't know if people remember this at all, but you know, reading all of these books on sports and stuff like that at a time, I got a book over here that goes through. I got a PDF book that actually goes through some history of racial situations. And when I was doing a presentation on HBCU's, the history of HBCU football, that's on the Mossy Warrior Clan channel, you know, I kind of went back over this situation, but also watching a lot of sports movies and things of that nature that piqued my interest with, especially football. I remember the BYU incident. How many people actually remember the BYU incident? Or the, you know what I'm saying? So in January of 1970, the Black Student Union at the University of Washington launched a protest campaign demanding that the UW server, all athletic relations, server, yes, you heard me, sir, yeah, I said it right, all athletic relations with BYU. Later, the BSU also demanded that the university make a statement condemning what? What are we condemning? BYU as a racist institution. Sean, why are you bringing this up? Because this is something that is common among BYU. See, y'all thought that I watch sports. I knew when you see this situation, you watch everything play out. You don't come out immediately and start talking about it. You wait until all the other evidence starts rolling down, and then you collect your data. Now that you got all your data, now you can present your position based on the data. Now it can be heard clearly. If I would have came out day one and started talking about this incident and then waited on all the other stuff, then it just would have been things that would have been missed over. Now you got to go make some corrections or something, and then this, that, and the third. So I'm not trying to be opinionated here. I'm just trying to use all the evidence that I actually have. Now, just so happen to have this in the back pocket because of some previous research and things of that nature, and my love for sports and understanding what Black college athletes went through during them early times, and they wasn't able to play football with whites, and the sport was segregated, and then it was desegregated, and then you had the first Black person go play ball here, then there, then everywhere else, and boop, 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 boop. Then it just became a thing. But in 1970, this is 52 years ago. Some of y'all are 50. Facts. They known as racist. But anyway, let me continue. The protests were doomed to failure. The university believed that they could not legally sever relations with BYU on the grounds that doing so would infringe on the Mormons church. Look at this, freedom of religion. For the BSU, the statement would have stood as a sign that the university was operating in good faith to end racism, but only compromise the administration could offer did not seem like such a gesture. So what happens? Inspired by successful protests, campaigns at other universities, the UWs, the BSU launched their own campaign against BYU in the first few weeks of the 1970 winter quarter. On a chilly Saturday morning on the January 20th, Blacks entered the HEC Edmondson Pavilion where the UW gymnastic teams was finishing their final round of warm-ups before scheduled meet against BYU. The protesters dumped garbage, threw eggs, poured ketchup and oil on the gymnastic mats, and knocked over chalk trays and tablets. When the UW gymnastics coach yelled at the protesters to leave, they responded by throwing a pail of water in his face before departing. Meanwhile, Lynn Hall, a Black gymnast, had begun circulating a petition requesting that the university cancel all future athletic competitions with BYU. The petition eventually garnered 1,500 signatures. BYU protests. Similar protests against BYU had been occurring for more than 2 years at numerous universities in Western United States. The first protest occurred in 1968 at the University of Texas, El Paso on Easter weekend in 1968. UTEP had scheduled track meets against BYU. The week before the track meet, several athletes informed their coaches they were going to boycott the meet. The coach was unsympathetic and told the Black team members that if they refused to compete, they would be off the team and lose their scholarships. The Black students refused to yield, did not go to Provo to participate in the meet, and were kicked off the team. When asked why he decided to protest, Dave Morgan, a UTEP runner, responded, "There are about a dozen reasons. The Mormons teach that Negroes are descended from the devil. The Mormons teach that Negroes are descended from the devil." That speaks to Jehudi's point in the chat. This is what the Mormons teach. This is the premise of the BYU. This is why you can call them a Negro in them settings, and it'd be okay. And it doesn't really get down too much. And the campus police really don't see a big thing about it because they've been in these situations before in the late 60s and early 70s and beyond that. As a reason for the track team's boycott, it may sound like a small thing to a white person. But who the hell wants to go up there and run your tail off in front of a bunch of spectators who think you've got horns? The way blacks were treated at UTEP was a second reason for the protests. Black athletes were not allowed to date whites, were given little financial assistance beyond their scholarships, and often called niggers by their coaches. In the eyes of the administrators, coaches, and white students, black athletes came to college to compete, not to get a degree. Once a black athletic eligibility was used up, he was often given little other financial assistance and forced to leave UTEP without a degree. Morgan then recalled that he also took part in the protest because the Negro is treated like something out of the jungle here. And we wanted to express ourselves about that. While the black athletes protest was big news on the UTEP campus, BYU record of racism and discrimination did not become national news until the fall of 1969, when 14 black football players at Wyoming, he go to incident, Wyoming was suspended from the football team for planning the protest against BYU. The University of Wyoming's successful football team had 14 black players recruited from around the nation. I got a Facebook post about the Wyoming 14. Their coach, Lloyd Eaton, was known as the disciplinarian and had a strict policy against his students protesting. October 15, 1969, 3 days before a game with BYU, the Black Student Alliance at the University of Wyoming delivered a letter to the university administration. The letter discussed the racial policies of the LDS Church and BYU and suggested that students and players protest in the upcoming game. Let me stop right here real quick. When I told you that BYU has a history, they have a history of this stuff. So when we go back to our dear sweet young sister's tweet, and she talked about here how the athletic director, Tom Holman, was going to have some, and his staff and players undergo education and training to better handle and prevent the racist, ignorant, and asinine behaviors that were exhibited by their fans during the match. Why would you think that he would do such, Rachel? They have a history of this. If they ain't learned it then, they damn sure ain't learning it now, sweet young lady. They are not. It's taught. Now, the 14 blacks on the team met, and while ensuring the tactics they would use, decided to protest the LDS Church doctrine. The specific issue that the athletes were protesting was a Mormon church policy that prohibited blacks from joining the priesthood. In the Mormon church, the priesthood was not a professional order, and all males entered the priesthood at 12. Without being allowed into the priesthood, blacks could not marry in the temple, hold important leadership positions in the church, or enter the highest levels of heaven. In short, the Mormon doctrine viewed blacks as spiritually inferior. After tentatively deciding to protest, Wyoming football players broached the matter with their coach. Eaton immediately railed the blacks for even considering the protest, revoked their scholarships, and dismissed them from the team. Since Wyoming was a nationally ranked team, film crews from 3 networks descended upon Laramie to cover the administrative, faculty, and student meeting, and that followed the dismissal. The national exposure of Wyoming protests kicked off a flurry of protests against BYU and Wyoming. Police were called to stop the violence in BYU Arizona State basketball game. Ooh, see? Y'all didn't know that it was going to go to a basketball game in BYU, huh? At the University of New Mexico, the Student Senate demanded that the college end any relations with BYU. In early November, Stanford announced that it would schedule no athletic events or competitions of any nature with BYU. Kenneth Pitzer, Stanford's president, defended the decision by stating it is a policy of Stanford University not to schedule events with institutions which practice discrimination on the basis of racial, national origin, or which are affiliated with or sponsored by institutions which do so. Outraged alumni and community members, as well as BYU, immediately criticized Stanford's new policy by arguing that it violated the Mormon Church freedom of religion. Freedom of religion, freedom of religion. Only if BYU is self-discriminated should such a step be taken. Later then, The BSU at the University of Washington demanded a similar statement. Administrators would remember the virulent attacks against Stanford's policy. Y'all getting a little black history here. You see what all this done did? A little black history here. So, I don't want to bore y'all, but I will update and put this in the chat for all of y'all. But if you look to the right, just right here, over here to right, these articles right here are a reflection of all the things of boycotting BYU. These are newspaper clippings, protests that were held. Racism cited as an issue of protest over BYU ties. BYU protest leads vow to resume UW disruptions. UW protests closed 5 halls court issues restraining order. More unrest at UW could bring guard. No new BYU athletic contracts. Hoggins confronts the UW demonstrators. Combined police forces readied for UW. Like, there's a lot of stuff that is going on right here. It's all right here. This stuff was known news. This is history, and it's in your face right now. Now, one of the sources, yep, right here, number 6. I'm telling y'all, man, when I was just being a sports fan and knowing the history of football and how black people just submerged onto all these different universities, I ran across that. But it is what it is. And this is a reality. So, you know, this incident is unfortunate, especially during this era, this time that we're actually in. And there's nothing that any of us will be able to do about it. BYU is thrusted under the spotlight again and is now updating its history of racism. And that's going to be a big deal going forward. How will they handle this situation? What do you expect them to do? The AD is saying that they need some training. They have a history of this shit. Why do they need training? Just look back at your own, just look back at your history. Just look back at your history, BYU. You acting like you need some damn training for some shit that you've already been involved in since the 70s, the late 60s, early 70s. It don't make no sense. So, all right. Let me look back in the chat, see what's going on. I just updated the description of the video for those of you who want that that article that I just put in there. Let me make sure that it's saved. Nope. I'll make sure that it's on there when the video is over. It'll be the last source in the description. Yeah, it'll be the last source. But yeah, man, what's y'all thoughts on that? What's going on, African Renaissance? What's good with you? But yeah, the Washington Examiner deemed the whole thing as a hoax, and that's the position that they took on that. So that's where y'all at with that. Also, YouTube ain't gonna let you in-game it like that. But nah, it is what it is at that point. It's unfortunate that the Duke players had to deal with that situation, but it's not gonna stop. This ain't the end of it. It's gonna continue to happen and occur. And despite anything that we say or do, is not going to change. It's not going to change anything that has occurred. But look, man, I'm not gonna keep everybody busy. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to slide in this afternoon. I know I ain't been live. I probably ain't gonna be live for a while again. Stay tuned to whatever Sutek, Kofi, Chavis, Sitep, and Ra might have planned or in store for the channel. Make sure y'all go cop Ben's book. It's African Spirituality or Religion. Look out for Kofi's Mandigo experiment. His book coming soon. And any other projects that we have coming down the pipeline by the end of the year. So I appreciate everybody tapping in, man. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day. Your boys out of here.
I realize this. Side I'm from where them hammers rung. In Atlanta slums, pop a nigga, sit and wait for the ambulance to come. I know if you a shooter, by the way you're handling the gun. Gambling you're done, shells burn like candles in the sun. I'm not a fan of gun violence, nor having a strap, but get popped once, and I swear that you'll be scrambling for one. But our plans was to get funds and skate off the set, so I mixed the kush with the dro to make all my weight stretch. I'm from where the dudes rob and argue all day about who's the best MC, Saha stacks and T.I. while dodging the GBI. My bad, I love GZI, but I'm still the best to ever do it, and I ain't even put a CD out. So the next time you say that I ain't got no lyricists, I just think you ain't got a taste for this exquisite shit. My verses are like Leviticus to the underprivileged. I make music for the world, you make music for a stripper bitch. Nick Black leather, parade cap era, guns at your capital, take it to that measure. It's Huey, nigga. It's Huey, nigga. Never been a victim, a rebel against the system. Lames wanna diss them and women just wanna kiss them. It's Huey, nigga. It's Huey, nigga. It's that God flow. What they nailed Jesus to the cross for. And he came back 3 days after he died flow. This Pablo. Talking to kids in Chicago. Mob flow. This that midget New Jersey drive flow. Side note. I wrote this rap with my eyes closed. Bravo. Cause it came out clean as the Moss flow. Costco. Hoes selling they twat for a condo. Benny Hunters and Roscoe. Picasso. Nas mixed with a pop flow. Rappers can't stand me. This that Grammy Nas flow. Let me stop though, cause I'm going digital with the syllables. Saw the press and the royalty like residual. These hoes for me, they supposed to be hospitable. When they in the house with a nigga that's not typical, this not fictional. I run this bitch like elliptical. Can another rapper come out of Atlanta if he not lyrical? Nigga, black leather, parade cap era, guns at your capital, take it to that measure. It's Huey, nigga. It's Huey, nigga. Never been a victim, a rebel against the system. Lames wanna diss them and women just wanna kiss them. It's Huey, nigga. It's Huey, nigga.
This that shot right.